Officially gone live. Welcome to my channel. I guess we can call this coasting with Krangus. Although I can start by saying this because nobody's in here yet, so I can just stall and wait for you guys to get here. Um, I've been trying to, the YouTube thing is pretty new to me, so I've gotten pretty good at short form, posting on TikTok, Facebook. So I'm trying to get better at this. So just help me out here, man. Let's get those subscribers numbers up. If you're you might see this later after it's not live. So if you are watching it from that point, go on and hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Go ahead and comment on this, and I'll respond. I don't have enough subscribers to not respond. So, you know, I guess I can start by talking about the fight last night while we stall. I'm going to put this on. Also, I don't think I can do that. I think I have to be stuck over here in the live chat section. Um, Mike Tyson and Jake Paul fought last night. Everybody's talking about it. I don't know if there's more about Mike Tyson's ass or more about Netflix not being able to show it to everybody or more about the fact that it was the most boring shit ever. But at least the wild thing about it is how boring that was compared to like the two fights before it, because I've never seen a main event that had sanctioned title fights before it as the undercard. That is very new to me. Like that was the welterweight championship title and then the female super lightweight championship title, and those were just the undercards. The I thought the welterweight WBC belt, it was Marcos Barrero and Abel Ramos. That was a really good fight and very sound. And I like to see welterweights really try to kill each other. That's always fun. Um, but then the fight between Taylor and Serrano, like a lot of people are happy about it or excited about it or got excited about it because it was, they really were going at it. I mean, they beat the hell out of each other. But what I say is somebody that has stepped in the ring before, like long, long time ago, never professionally, obviously, but somebody that has trained. Um, it looked like they were just beating, like trading shots. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of footwork. There wasn't a whole lot of slips. There wasn't a whole lot of controlling the fight with the jab. It was just they really were trying to beat the hell out of each other, which I guess is fun. But it's weird because I've always heard people, when they talk about the WNBA versus the NBA, people will say that female basketball players are a lot more fundamentally sound, but not as exciting. Whereas the male dominated portion of that, the NBA, is a little bit more less exciting. I don't see. I'm trying to figure out how I can see who you are because somebody just joined in. Um, but come on, drop a chat because I can't see who you are. But it seems like in boxing, it's the opposite, or at least in that case, because it felt like they were less fundamentally sound but more exciting. Like they were beating the hell out of each other. So I guess that's a different. Basketball is one thing, boxing's another thing. I guess that's the takeaway I can get for it. But that doesn't matter anymore. Tonight, I am doing a show down in Long Beach at the Fifth World Art Gallery. We've done a couple of shows there before. I'm always excited about it because it is. Sorry, I got the laptop and the computer or the phone going. I'm excited about it because it is an art gallery, and anytime somebody like a venue hits me up, I do turn down a lot more gigs than I have in the past because most of the time a bar will hit me up to do a show like locally and they don't really know what they're asking for. They just sometimes it's a case where like they think that a comedy night's going to save their bar and it doesn't work out, and I don't know what to tell you. So that is kind of, there is one side of this that I'm hosting this so that people that are venue owners or managers or people that are thinking about hosting a comedy night and hiring us, you can ask questions here. And the other side of it is I want to let comics know how to be professional in these rooms and how to set up shows and what to ask for venues. So this is going to be my dream for this episode, which will be going for an hour, um, my dream for this is that venue owners and comedians that are new can kind of be in this group chat together so we can all talk about it professionally. Because, I don't, for the comedians, I don't get a chance to talk to you guys a lot during the open mics because I'm busy. I got a show to run. I'm having to watch the show. If you ever notice, I try to watch the show and I specifically try to watch the crowd reaction because I don't want to get to a point where I'm booking based off of what I think is funny. I want to book based off of what I know the crowd thinks is funny. I think that's fair. If I booked what I thought was funny, half of you wouldn't get booked, and that's no offense. I've seen stand up so much. It's hard for most of the stuff that I laugh at on stage, like that's, for me watching is like if somebody, does a recovery joke or just something that's out of the ordinary. But, I think comedian, the sad thing about being a comedian for so long is you get to a point where you start to be able to predict the setups and it just isn't as funny. It's why I don't watch a lot of like comedy specials anymore. Um, it's just not as interesting as it used to be. But we got one in here. Let me see who you are. What? When I was doing this on my computer, it was better than this. Like I could actually see who people were. But now it's at a point where I can't because I'm trying to do it on my phone because everybody told me that that was better. I am really trying to figure out this YouTube thing. But if you were here for the live last week, I am doing this on my phone. So this is a lot better than it was because I had this mic that I don't know if the mic went out or if my soundboard went out, but it was bad. So I tested it again and it was just not. I tried to do a whole episode, like a pre-recorded episode yesterday. I feel like I recorded about 38 minutes of just me rambling. And then I went to edit it and it didn't record any of the sound. It was like very muffled. You couldn't hear me talk at all. So, man, I'm still learning this YouTube thing. But again, thank you for coming, whoever you are, because for whatever damn reason I can't see you, despite being able to see you last time. Why is it not showing me who you are? All right, well, I'm going to have to give that up. All right, so just start asking questions. Maybe that'll be the answer. Just start asking something. Give me a comment. Give me a subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. Because maybe that's the problem here. I just haven't seen any questions. But again, the questions that I'm trying to field right now were from venue owners or just people that are interested in the business side of comedy and how to get booked, how to book a show, how to set it up. Because one thing, to go back to what I started with when you guys joined, one thing that I got really tired of when I was doing a lot of these bar shows on the coast is, I would ask people things like, hey, how are we going to market it? And they would say, oh, we'll promote it on Facebook. And what they meant was, we'll share a flyer once. Guys, that is not going to cut it. That's not what I mean by marketing. All right. What I mean by that is, are we paying for sponsored ads? Are we, hey, what's up, Nora? Okay, now I'm seeing who it is. So this is a venue owner. We're working there tonight. Fifth World Art Gallery. Great one. And I like you, Nora, because you're another artist. You're an art gallery. You are an artist, and that's why I did decide. Okay, let's put my chips in with this person because I know that you're after it because you actually care about what we can provide in entertainment to the coast. Whereas a lot of bars are just trying to make money, which is okay. Not not a problem to want to make money, but if you want to make money, if you're a venue owner and you want to make money, then you gotta meet me. You gotta like let me do my job, or let whatever like comedian that you have that's there to produce a show. Let us do our job, and I'm gonna tell you what that looks like. You need to turn TVs off. All right, you need to have chairs focused toward the stage much as you can. You need to talk to the staff about helping out with crowd control, because I'll give you a story about that. I was doing a show in Biloxi a few years ago back at the Southport line, back when that was a thing. It's closed now. Really good food, but for whatever reason it closed. And I think probably because of COVID. But very small room, and I'm in the middle of setting up a joke. And like there's the setup, and then there's the pause, and then there's the punchline. And right in the pause part, one of the servers walked out and just went, "Who wanted these fries?" And like it just loud, like said it, like screamed it almost, and it ruined the joke, And it was like, damn. So like definitely venues have to have conversations with staff about like, hey, like keep the table talk down. If you've ever been to the jute joint, Brittany behind the bar knows this, and she will personally tell you to shut up. If you're talking too loud, or at these dive bars, I understand that there's going to be people that are like uh, they don't necessarily know it's a show, although the juke's been going on for 5 years. So I think most people understand that this is a comedy show, which is why the show's been going so long because they let me do my job. But I'll have venues that, like a horror story that I had when I first moved back was I worked at the Celtic a while back, and it was like the bouncer was like drinking behind the bar and like he was talking loud with one of the customers, and I was like, hey man, can you like keep it down, we're trying to do a show that you hired us to do. And he like threatened to fight us, and it was like, you know what, just let's give me the check and we'll go. Like I don't need all that. But that's a kind of extreme story. But TV's off. The idea really is you got to think about eliminating as many distractions as you need. And for the love of God, I'm glad you're here, Nora, because I'm going to roast you a little bit. Uh, for the love of God, no intermissions, because the point of like what we call the host, feature, and headline format, where you have a host do 10 to 15 minutes, and then you have a feature do 30, and then you have a headliner close it out with like an hour. The way that's supposed to work is it's like a crescendo. So the host gets up there. His job is to warm everybody up, explain to them what this is that we're here, what we're going to see, and then do a few jokes to start getting them, the ice is broken. And then the feature gets up, and it's basically they set them up, the headliner knocks them down. So it's not, if you cut that off in the middle by putting a stupid intermission in the middle of it, it's going to screw that entire process up. And the same thing with the showcase. I mean, we're trying to book all this all up front, so that it goes from one level of, it's a crescendo. It's down here at first, and then you crescendo it to the top at the end of the show. The headliner should typically have like a nice closer. Boom, everybody's happy. But Nora, I'm glad you're here. Positioned me yesterday to. She asked, "Hey, we should have a mime in the middle of it," which I did. Look, it's fine. I know you feel attacked, but no, it was just I laughed so hard because I was like, I have never in the 11 years of comedy had a venue say, "Hey, we should put a mime in the middle of the show." I was like, I texted some of my friends, and they were like, "Bro, I think you leveled up. I quit comedy." So don't worry, Nora. We're still there for you. We're coming. But that's why intermissions aren't ever a good idea, because it screws up the rhythm and the timing of the show as a whole. And that's the thing about the coast specifically, is a lot of venues are used to doing music. Mississippi's the birthplace of music, as they say. It's on our license tags. And so a lot of times these venues that I've worked, or the one thing they'll think is, oh, it'll be a 6 hour show or a 3 hour show, and it's like, dude, that's not. Do you really want to sit down and watch comedy for 6 hours? I mean, you got to think of it like a movie. And I think anybody that's watching that is an audience member or a potential audience member, think about comedy as a movie. All right, you wouldn't walk into a movie theater and talk through it, would you? Right. So don't do it a comedy show. It's wild to me that people don't get that. Like comedy can't be a background thing. Music is. I know that I've talked to musicians about this, and they don't like it when they're playing and it's like a background thing. But at least it can be. Like people aren't going to get mad, like unless you're really bad. People aren't going to get mad that you're playing. That to them it's like a vibe. But comedy, if people aren't paying attention and they're talking over it, the rest of the crowd will get mad, and sometimes they'll turn on you, and then sometimes they'll turn on the comedians. It depends on what's going on. But like, if you're not even giving it a shot, then it's not going to work. So definitely, you know, with venues, just understand that comedy can't be seen as a background. It's got to be, you got to actually do as much as you can to eliminate distractions on that stage and focus it toward the stage. So I know that it's Nora that's here, and there's another person. I don't know. Hey, whoever else you are, go ahead and leave that comment. Go ahead and actively get in these chats. Come on in. Let's see. I don't see who you are, but come on in and start commenting so I can see you. And this is definitely more open to questions. So if you guys have questions, it says, "Oh, thanks. I feel like it's about having a safe place for artists, even comedians, to grow." Well, yeah. I mean, that's why I really do turn down a lot of gigs because I don't feel like, you know, here's a good thing. I wrote, or I didn't write. I wish I could reference it because I want to give this person credit, but somebody wrote an article, a comedian wrote an article last year that I read, and it was pretty much described the way I do business when it comes to booking my own personal gigs, not producing, but booking them. Whenever you're a comedian, you need to think about, even if you're a young comedian, there's three things you need to think about when somebody requests you for a booking. One, the money, obviously. Because if the money is good, and it's like you think it'll be a shit show, take it anyway because the money's good. I don't think I have to tell anybody that. If somebody is offering you a couple grand, then take the show. So that's one thing. If the money's good, take it. The second one is exposure. Now, I know that there's memes all over the place that say like, yeah, I can't feed my family with exposure. Well, okay, I get that, but like if Joe Rogan opened up the clouds and lifted his hand down and said, "Hey, Krangus, will you come do the mothership?" I'd probably, most of you and myself included, would probably fly myself down there without any pay to take that gig because there is such thing as good exposure. But you have to weigh out if that exposure is worth it. The third thing, and this is the one that I think a lot of new comics need to listen to, experience. Is this gig going to give me a new experience that I haven't done yet? Is it in a new city that I've never done before? Is it in a new type of venue? Because the new type of venue, I've done strip clubs, and here's one, we're doing an art gallery. It's a different experience that I'm trying to give to everybody. Is it a different experience that you can get? Is it a person that's offering you more stage time than you have been doing before? That's another one. Like if you can look at it and go, okay, I'm not getting paid much, but I'm doing something that I haven't done before, then take the gig because you never know what it's going to lead to. Most of the gigs that I've ever gotten, well, whenever I was starting to become, it took me like 5 years to really become like a working comic. It just takes a while. Like I worked for a long time without getting paid. So don't feel weird if it's weird to me, like looking back. I'll hear young comics on the patio at the Juke complain because they've been in for 6 months and they're not getting headliner gigs. And it's like, dude, comedy is a patience game. It's an old man's game. You just have to keep doing it and keep putting that work in. But if somebody's offering you a gig that has a new experience or good pay or good exposure, take the gig. I'm really hoping for more questions. I see this secret person's on still. I'll look later. I'll figure you out. I'll know. But comics, when it does come to you getting time to get booked, whenever you think you're ready, which nobody's ever really ready for the next level, and I know that. Whenever I book things, I typically will, I'll try to ask comics, try not to lie about how much time you can do with these bookers, but I say that, but everybody is going to lie about it. Like new comics always lie about how much time they can do. But try to be reasonable with it. Because I know for me personally, when I ask that question, how much time can you do? They'll say, oh, 30 to 45. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'm going to say 20 because that's what I know. But I typically try to, when it comes to the comics that I see on a regular basis at the open mic, I kind of already know your strengths and skills. So I will try to push you to do longer sets than you're used to. Because I think that's what, it's all about growth, and like doing longer sets takes experience to do those longer sets. It's real easy to do 5, but when it comes to doing 30, when it comes to doing 45, when you have to do 50 to an hour, it can be daunting at first. And the only way you get to that point is by doing those 10-minute sets, then working that into a 15-minute, and then working that into a 30-minute, and then it's a patience game. And yeah, you can't, if you're only 6 months in and you've only ever done 10 minutes, stop hounding people about headlining. Like I don't, if you don't have the experience, you don't. But like baby steps. Like if you've only done 10 minutes before, yes, start asking for 15-minute spots. Start asking for longer spots. But don't immediately think that you're a headliner just because you've done consistently well at 3 open mics. Like, come on. Um, but when it does come to booking, if you're a young comic, let's say you've gotten to a point, I would say the starting point for a comedian when it comes to getting booked on paid shows is if you have a 10 solid minute set, 10 minutes of solid material. That I think is enough to say, okay, I can get on some showcases or maybe do hosting work. Um, but to do that, I think a lot of young comics expect it to be a situation where they just wait for somebody to reach out. And that's not the way it's going to be. I mean, even after 11, yeah, I do get, after 11 years, I do get booked. People do reach out to me because I've done work for them before. But I'm telling you right now, you know how that started? Was because initially, at some point down the line, I reached out to them. I'm telling you right now, I can go through my email and my messenger and my texts. I usually do it on Wednesdays, but I spend the entire morning and afternoon on Wednesday just reaching out to people that I've worked with in the past or people that I haven't worked with, sending them emails, sending them texts, sending them messages. Hey, I'm looking for availables on this date. If I don't know the person, I say, hey, here's my video, and it's usually a 5 to 10 minute set. And then don't when you have when you send people clips, make sure it's an actual clip of you and you don't cut it off in the middle. It's a clip of you from start to finish on a set because that's what a booker and a promoter is going to want to see. How can he handle being brought up on stage from start to finish? Are you consistent? Send them the video. Send them your bio, which is kind of like your resume. If you ever need help with that, I can help you with that. It's just like a paragraph typically. And at first, you're not going to have credits. You're not going to have like I did this, but you can just describe your act. Send a bio. Typically, some people send headshots up front, but I typically just send. If you just stick to sending a video and then sending them your availables, that's good. One thing comics do screw up a lot is they will send messages as if you're like a dude trying to get laid. Like I'll get messages where it's like, "Hey," from a comic, and I'm like, I always ignore those because I guess the idea is you think I'm going to respond and then we're going to form this into a professional conversation, and I don't ever fall for that. And most actual bookers that are worth any of their weight is not going to fall for that either. So don't just send like vague messages to try to bait me into booking you. Just hit me like out with it. Tell these bookers what you want. Hey, if you don't know them, hey, this is who I am. Here's my video. I'm looking for specific available dates because that's the other thing. People will say, hey, anything you got, I'm on. I'm ready for it. And it's like, okay, well, that's not like I don't necessarily have. I specifically don't really consider myself a producer or a booker. I mean, I do book things, but it's really only good ideas that I see that I go, okay, well, I can fill a vacuum on this. But I don't have like a set schedule of shows. And typically, when I do have a book show, I already have in mind who I want to put on it. So, um, which brings me to my next point. Don't feel like I get ghosted all the time from bookers that I don't know, and it could be just because they didn't never see the email. Maybe I got a hold of a dead email. Maybe I got a hold of them on a bad time and they just saw it but then forgot to respond. So don't take it personally if you get ghosted because that happens to everybody in this business when it comes to trying to get booked, man. Um, it's rejection is going to be part of the game at first. Don't take that personally, and especially don't comics. I'm telling you now, man. I listen to y'all on the patio. Sometimes I'll overhear y'all talking shit about other producers or other bookers, and it just makes you look bad because I go, well, dang, if they're doing that about some other producer or some other comic, I bet they do that about me when I'm not around. So, because I always am very careful about if I'm talking shit about somebody, I don't care if they know about it. That bridge is already burned. I'm good with that. So be careful about that because you never really know where comedians like that you start with are going to end up. I mean, when I started in Phoenix 11 years ago, there was the people that were really the up and comers were Jesse Jetski Johnson, who now is big on Kill Tony, opens for Andrew Santino and Pauly Shore all over the place. She's the trumpet player on Kill Tony, but she's also a comic in her own right, very gifted. But I started with her like a long time ago. Michael Longfellow was another person. That guy used to come to my house and smoke weed. He's currently a cast member on Saturday Night Live. So like, and I never had like a bad relationship with them. But the point I'm trying to make is, you have no idea. Some of these people that are nobodies now that you're starting, you have no idea where they're gonna go. So keep your wits about you when it comes to being at these open mics, because some of these people might end up, if they're not already something that could, get you in the door to some gigs, they might end up years down the road being something. So, you know, some of you guys, a lot of comics, when they do their first set and for the first few times, they'll get really drunk. And I get it. It's because, first of all, it's a bar. It's probably how you heard about the show. And, but they'll get real drunk, and then they got the nerves portion of it, and that's why they drink. But it, when it comes to getting booked, I have to consider that, like on a professional show, if that's what you're doing all the time at the mics, I'm not going to book you, because I'm going to assume that you're going to be that same way at a book show, and I can't have that. I can't have you coming into Fifth World Art Gallery and tearing shit up because you're drunk or starting fights. So just, I know it's open mics, but you gotta, like, I do look at stuff like that, and I know other bookers do too. Like, if you're hammered every single show, I mean, come on. I do drink sometimes at the mics, but I usually do it afterwards. And at that point, it's usually when the comics have already left, and I'm just hanging out with my friends, because the Juke happens to be a place where a lot of my friends hang out. So just, keep your wits about you. Uh, okay. If you got, look again, I'd like to, if you, there's three people in here, maybe more people will watch after it's not live anymore. I'm gonna go live, or I'm gonna be on here for about 30 more minutes. But give me some comments. Let's get some questions out here. I've got more stuff to just talk about, but don't let this just be a ramble fest. If you've got a question, Nora, if you got questions about how comedy shows are typically run, hit me. We got a show tonight, so let's get it out in the open now. Um, but please, if you don't already subscribe, hit that subscribe button. Let's get the first goal out of the way to get to 100 subscribers. I can go ahead and say that 2 weeks ago this page was at 10 followers, because I never did YouTube before. I always stuck to short term or short form. I'm trying to get better at the long form, because that's the direction that this industry is going. And I'm trying to. This is actually helping me get better at eloquently speaking for a long time. I am getting cotton mouth right now, though. So I should have definitely opened up. Give me a second. I'm going to go get a water. I will be right back. Hey, Jess? Jess, you think you can make me a coffee? I'm sorry. I'm just putting it in there with the water. Just a black, I don't care. All right, I'm back. I feel like I'm just gonna have to do this for a while until this page grows, because it does feel a little bit like I'm just yelling into the wind. But I do some of this. I could probably see as like a therapeutic thing, because I can get a lot of stuff out there. But all right, let's talk about this, because a thing happened in an adjacent field recently. I'm trying to say this as politically as I can, that brought to my attention a thing that I see quite a bit. And I want to establish the type of comedian and the type of producer, when I do produce, that I am. There's been a recent situation where somebody tried to get people to sign a non or exclusive contracts, but not guaranteeing X amount of dollars for bookings, and people were upset about it. And I'm not trying to attack anybody on this. I just want to put out, because it did kind of, it drew a concern with me that could be a thing locally, because stuff like that was common when I started. You see gatekeepers do this pretty regularly, like in LA, or I used to see that. I don't know what the scene's like over there anymore, but you see, like producers that prey on young comics to try to get them to do bringer shows. Which, if you don't know what a bringer is, it's where you have to bring 10 people to the show, or you don't go on, or you got to bring 10 people or you don't get paid. Or there's the problem with those shows is you got a situation where these are inexperienced comics. They've all hustled their family and friends into a show that they don't really want to be there except to support their own guy who's only going to be doing 5 minutes because they're brand new. So it feels a little bit more like a dance recital that you go to that you don't really want to be at, but you're there to support your friend's kid or your kid, whatever. Which is why I don't think they've ever been a good idea, and they're not good for long term, because what happens is comedians end up getting better and they go, yeah, I don't need to do those anymore. So you're left with only being able to use like brand new comedians that honestly suck. So, but these contracts, you just like everybody should tell you, just watch what you sign, um, because the only way an exclusive contract works is if the party on the other side signing it can agree to giving you X amount of bookings that would be X amount of dollars per year. Those are the only times that an exclusive contract works. But if you sign something to where they're not on the line to make sure you make enough money, and now all your bookings have to go through them, that ain't worth it. And honestly, most of that is illegal. Like a lot of that doesn't usually hold up in court anymore. I know that in April of this year, non-compete contracts are now illegal, and that's a federal thing. I looked that up recently. So a lot of it doesn't hold up in court anyway, but I still just be aware of what you sign. One thing I will say though about signing stuff, I did have a problem years ago when I was starting to do shows for Landmass Comedy, or produce, where I was trying to get comics to sign I-9s, which if you don't know what an I-9 is, it's the same as like a W-2 but for a contractor. And they were freaking out about, oh, I don't know if I should sign this. And yeah, an I-9 is a contracting basically a W-2, and it means that this is the money you're making, and I don't care if you pay your taxes or not. I just don't want to have to pay, as the employer, I don't want to have to pay your taxes and my taxes. So I-9s are legit. I did have a comic that just wouldn't sign it because they were like, I don't want to sign. I'm not comfortable signing this. And I'm like, dude, it's a it's a contract for your taxes. That's all it is. You can read it. It's a federal thing. But if it's a contract where they're trying to get you to lock in for only doing their shows or only doing it here, yeah, don't sign that. There used to be a comedy club. I don't think that they can do it anymore, but there used to be a comedy club that made people sign a thing saying that you couldn't perform within like 100 miles of the venue for that month. But I don't even know if that's legal anymore. So, or sign them and then dare them to sue you. I don't know. Live a little bit, I guess. But just be careful about stuff like that, and just be wary of the problem with like companies and producers that do stuff like this and have shady business practices is that they don't realize that they're screwing themselves in the end. Because what happens is now that you're forced to only work with new and inexperienced entertainers, you have to now, because you're trying to make money, charge an above par rate for a subpar performance, and that always ends up screwing you because it leads to less bookings, it leads to less attendance, and there you go. But I don't personally consider myself a producer. I vowed a long time ago to never make an attempt to make money off of another artist. That's not what I'm in this for. I mean, the show tonight, I don't think I'm going to make any money. If I do make money, it's because we have a sellout. The only time I've ever pocketed anything on these ticketed events that I produce is when when it sells out and I've paid everybody else and I basically am able to take what's left over. That's the only time I ever pocket, and the only time that's really ever happened, because I sell out pretty regularly at the Juke when I do a ticketed event. But those ticketed events usually involve having a lot more comedians, a lot more talent. Because the way that I operate, is they pay me enough to run the open mic, which, hey, I'm earning that because most of the time, I mean, Nora was there 2 weeks ago when I was like the only comic that showed up. I earned my keep. And that's the other thing about me. I am not afraid of any competition. Like if somebody starts running other comedy shows, I want that to happen. That's a goal is for me to have other comedians have their own shows just like me at the Juke where we all can work together because I would like to get to a point where I'm not producing anymore. The reason I'm doing this is to show that we all can do it so that you guys start producing things and then I can sit back and wait for y'all to book me and then I can still make money. So it's not like I'm doing that for any kind of selfless act. It's just I'm trying to get y'all's experience up so that you can, go out to venues and you have a name for yourself that they go, oh, okay, yeah, we should book you as a host of a comedy show at our venue. And then if you do that, I'll be able to get booked. And then we now have a comedy scene. But I'm not afraid of competition because I don't think there's anybody that if no comics show up, they can still do an hour at an open mic. And I did it 2 weeks ago. I have the video proof of it too. And I've done that before. It's like normal for me. Not at the Juke, but I did a show when I did that show in Poor Judgment. Hopefully Tan gets on here at some point. But I did a show in Long Beach years ago. It's why I fell in love with Long Beach, Mississippi. And it was an open mic, and a lot of comics wouldn't show up, partially because of the night of the week it was on, partially because it was kind of far from everybody, and partially because I made it a heckle open mic where it was okay to heckle. And I just never got comics. And I did that for a year, and a lot of times it would be by myself working that mic anyway. So I'm not afraid of it. I actually welcome competition because it would make me, work harder anyway. So I want to get to a point where we all do that. And I vowed a long time ago, but I will vow again so that you hear me. I am never going to try to make money off of another artist. That's why I don't ever charge other comedians that aren't on the lineup tickets because I started at a comedy club. For 3 years, I worked watching people like Sam Morril go up, people like Ty Rivera, people like Mark Norman. Tom Segura showed up at our club and did a weekend. This is before he blew up, but it was when he was still pretty big. I mean, I got the awesome experience of seeing these people 7 times a week, and a lot of that seeped in. So that was my college. So we don't have that opportunity here, but for what I can provide, I want you guys to be able to come to shows to learn as much as you can, to network as much as you can in the beginning, so that those opportunities are open for you, just like they were for me. Now we're not going to have that. I can't provide like 7 nights a week or 7 shows a week because we would do 1 show Thursday, 2 shows Friday, 2 Saturday, and 1 Sunday for the other thing. Nora, last show at the gallery was awesome. Hoping everyone gets a chance to experience it. The vibe was on point. Pretty sure Toya broke me. Well, Toya breaks a lot of people's hearts, so there it is. But, comics are always going to be able to get in for free at my shows, unless you've been shady with me. And then I'm like, no, now I don't consider you a comic. But, if you regularly come to the open mic or if I've booked you before, then yeah, you're welcome to come, dude, for free. Don't hesitate. Some of you will pay without telling me, and then I'm like, well, I'm not going to, like pre-sales. People will just buy tickets, and it's like, well, I guess that happened, but I'll let you figure that out for yourself. Well, if you like that, Nora, tonight, once again, I'll make a reminder here. She's in the chats right now. We are doing a show tonight at Fifth World Art Gallery in Long Beach. It's pretty cool. Is that mime still showing up? Because you told me there was a mime that was going to be there. I don't know what we're going to do with it, but the mime is there. But we have a local comic, Jacob Slater. He's been working his ass off. And then Ryan Deacle. He's from Mobile, but he was coming to the open mic for a while last year at the Juke. Small auction, not big. Well, okay, so tonight we have Anna Lepley, who is really funny. I've worked with her a few times. She also sells a lot of really funny merch. So if you like Toya, you're really going to love Anna tonight. She's amazing. She's actually got a PhD, and she's like a lesbian, but it's like she's like a bro, dude. It's pretty fucking cool. I like her a lot. Like she's a very I respect her work ethic also. She's got great hustle, but she's very personable. She loves hanging out after the shows. So we'll probably hang out a little bit after. But Anna Lepley, Dr. Anna Lepley, is going to be here in the house. You can look her up. It's ANNALEPELEY. I screw that up sometimes when I put her on flyers, but she's coming to us all the way from, man, I always screw up where she's from because she works all over the place, but I think she's from Miami. So she'll be there tonight. And then we got Jacob and Ryan. They're new, but they've been pushing it. So that's what I book. Dude, I'm running a meritocracy. If you keep showing up to the mics, if you keep grinding and I can see it, I'm gonna book you. I'm not gonna book people just because they booked me. I don't trade shows. I'm only gonna book based off of if I can see you grinding. That's it. I'm not gonna book people just because they think I should. I'm not gonna book people just because they're doing me favors. I ain't doing that. No, I'm not gonna book people so that they book me. I I stand by my product. I stand by my set. And I believe if you have a product that can't sell itself, then it ain't worth selling. So if me asking to get booked requires me booking you, then I'm not going to reach out to you. That's a very common thing in this industry, and I don't care for it. I'm going to book based off of what I see. Um, so, with that said, let's talk about the future of comedy because it's going to have to be more people that are running shows at other venues. And I'd like to talk a little bit about what I've learned as a showrunner over the years in Mississippi. Like I said before, man, when I first moved back home from Phoenix 5 years ago, I was reaching out to people to do shows, and like comedy was such a non-existent thing on the Gulf Coast that, like Mississippi Gulf Coast anyway, people didn't understand that it was like a business. And like I would reach out to people for bookings, and then when it came to talking about money, they'd be like, oh well, we'll just give you a bar tab. Or I did have one place that offered me spaghetti. They're like, we'll feed you some spaghetti to headline a show. And I was like, at that point I was working the brewery comedy tour, like for paid gigs. Like at that point I was a working comic, so it was like, bro. Which does bring me to one thing I forgot before I get into how to set up a show. It's also very acceptable when I book you. I know that I'm very like upfront. I'll say, hey, this is how much you're getting. This is the date. This is the time. This is how much time you're doing. Do you want the gig? And it can be negotiable. But I always say take it or leave it. But a lot of people don't do that. They'll just say, hey, do you want to do this show? And then they'll wait for you to agree. And then if you didn't agree to money, then you can't really expect it. So, and people that gets a lot of people in trouble because they'll have their hand out at the end of the show, and then people are like, well, we didn't agree to anything. And then it becomes this person screwed me on Facebook, and then the other person's like, well, I'm just never going to book you again. So don't do that. Just anytime somebody books you, you gotta have a little bit of balls, man. Just if they don't give you the details, just say like, hey, what are the details of the show? That's what I do. I say, what are the details? And then that means how much am I getting paid? And, if they give me a weird kind of runaround answer, then I know that's probably not the best person that I should be working with anyway. Sometimes it's okay to turn down a gig. But again, go back to the three. Is it good experience? Is it good exposure? Is it good money? But anyway, when you set up a show, let's say you're a new local comic, or you've done a little bit, but you've only done the mics. Maybe you've got a few book shows, but hey, I want to start setting up my own shows. All right. Well, you want to go to some of these, when you go to these bars, you don't want to go when it's busy. Go in probably between 3 and 5. That's typically the best time to go. And do it on an off night, not a weekend. And just kind of sit down and talk to whoever's behind the bar and just casually bring up, I'm a comedian. And sometimes if you say that, sometimes they'll be like, man, like some gigs that I've gotten on the coast is from where I just say that to a bartender and they're like, man, we're kind of looking for a comedy act. And then you're set. Then you're like, well, shit, let's talk. What I do is, like, my MO is if a bar is asking me, if they want like an open mic, then we do it during the week. We don't charge tickets. And for me, I charge a certain rate, but I think it's pretty safe if you're new and that venue hasn't done it a whole lot. A good opening rate to charge for running an open mic for like a weekly event is about $50, because you're talking about the fact that you can't guarantee the quality of it because it's an open mic. It's meant for anybody to sign up. It's basically practice night, but you are doing a little bit of the work, so you should get something. Um, but $50 is a good starting rate. But talk to them about, hey, $50, but if it does good after a set amount of time, let's see if we can up that price. You know. But then once you agree to it, you know, say, okay, what are we going to do to market it? You know, is there a budget? I talked about that earlier. Also, make sure that you talk to them about sound. Make sure you talk to them about helping with making sure that there's no distractions. But just always ask all this stuff up front. Talk to them about the staff. You know, hey, have them be quiet, have the TVs turned off. Just agree to all this stuff up front. It goes back to the booking thing. Make sure you agree on the price up front, and then make sure you agree on what you need to expect from them, and then ask them what they expect from you, because they might again, some of these people are going to look at it like it's a music show and they don't know any of this. You got to not look at these venue owners like they've ever even been to a comedy show, and even if they have, they don't know how to set it up. You got to be the person to tell them. And if they give you any pushback about, well, the TVs have to be on, be like, well, are we doing sports night or are we doing comedy night? Which one do you want? You know, and that's why I don't do shows on Sundays, or at least open mics, because I don't want to have to compete with football. Or I will do a Sunday show, but it needs to be at a place that's not like a sports bar. Um, and I don't like pool tables. Pool tables are just a terrible, terrible. I hate pool tables. God, I hate pool tables so much. It's I've never seen a good comedy show that had pool tables unless they agree to like reserve the tables. I don't do those, but look, if you're trying to get your feet wet, it's not a bad experience to do a bar like that. Yeah, or yeah, you could have a venue owner that wants to do a mime in the middle of your set. I'm almost tempted to bring that guy on stage with me. Shit. But yeah, just always ask for things up front. Whatever it's going to be, whatever the agreement is, stick to it. Don't expect anything afterward. There's a horror story that I know of a guy that I just wasn't me. I wasn't involved, but I was told about this. I won't name names, but this guy got booked somewhere, and he had to the point where he had to fly. He was far. He flew out, but didn't agree to a price over the phone. He was supposed to headline, and he gets there, and like right before he goes up, starts saying like, "Hey, it's the price is this, right? The price is." He was trying to like highball him. He's basically trying to negotiate after he had already gotten there and was about to go on stage. And the booker was like, "Well, no, we didn't agree to that. I mean, we are going to pay you, but this is what we normally pay for what we're doing here." And the guy got really mad about it and got on stage and just like, I think from what I was told, he just fucked the crowd. He didn't really do a set. He just kind of like punished the crowd for them, I guess. And it got to a heated point where after the show, from what I was told, some of the staff tried to some bad things almost happened to this comic that wouldn't have been very couth, should I just say. I don't want to. I know some people might know about this story, but yeah, and there might be some. I mean, I heard it secondhand, so some of this might be exaggerated, but still, it does illustrate like, hey, don't just like expect something just because you think that's what you're getting out of this gig. Don't expect that at another gig. I personally had a situation where when I was running a show at the district on the alley, which is now, well, it was the Cadillac, but I think it's gone now, and now I think another venue is opening there in Gulfport, and it was an open mic where I would hire a host. I give them about $50 because I do think that that's a solid rate. The bar was paying the total of 150, and then I was collecting 50 myself because I would perform on it, and I would do the end because I knew we didn't have enough comics to like actually make the time, because I agreed to a 90-minute set or my 90-minute show. They would do like 20 up front and then have the comics, and then I would always finish it up to make the time. So I would collect 50, and then 50 would go right into the ad budget. Like I would do a sponsored ad
on either Facebook. I was trying to do Snapchat ads for a little while, but I didn't like those. Either way, they got to a point where they were like, my minimum is now 300, which I was like, well, good luck with that, because ain't no like dive bar on a Monday night is going to pay you that, and I can't afford it. So good luck, but don't try to highball people to an exorbitant amount. But the idea is, don't just because I'm sure it's because this person did a gig over here and got X amount of dollars, but don't expect that to be the same on an agreement we already made. Because I remember the agreement was definitely like, hey, it's a Monday night. If you ever have any other gig that pays higher, go take it, and I will, cover for you that night. It's not a big deal. I just figure comedy, like paid gigs, are usually not happening on Mondays, so it's a take it or leave it thing. If ever you need to go ahead. That's fine, but don't expect me to pay you that much, for a open mic, to host an open mic at a bar on a Monday. Um, just be realistic about your expectations, but especially you can't have a business mindset at the back end of a deal if you didn't have the business mindset in the front end of the deal. So if you don't agree, if you don't like speak your mind and voice your opinion in the front, then don't expect it at the end. That's a pretty good lesson there. Um, I got notes here. That's what I'm looking at. I still don't know who these other two people are. It's just me and Nora on this thing. But once again, we got a show at the Fifth World Art Gallery. I'm gonna do this like Morris Bart. The big problem I always have here is like comics get good at the open mics or just get good on the scene here and then they leave. We've had like since I've been here like 5 or 6 comics that like get good and then they go find their fortunes elsewhere, which there's nothing wrong with that. Um, but that's the only problem that I really have. I'm not trying to capitalize on you guys because I got my own career to worry about, man. Like I don't want to make money off of somebody else's thing because that would mean I'm just their booker at that point. I want to be my own comedian. My goal, like my actual thing, is to be able to make enough money doing things like this. I'd like to get this YouTube page monetized one day, make money through that and through booking gigs to where I can afford to hire somebody to edit all my podcasting stuff, and then I can hire somebody to book all my gigs for me, and then I can hire a publicist. That way, my life is just writing jokes and then going to perform them wherever I have to. That would be the dream for me. I don't want to be doing all this legwork, but I realize that, it's going to have to start from somewhere. And look, if I have to work this hard at 11 years, I don't know why some people I've noticed on the coast, like comedian wise, don't understand that like you do if you're trying to really become a working comic, because a lot of you are still at the open mic level, and that's not a bad thing. It's okay to be an open micer, but if you're trying to break into that next like phase, like I don't understand why you think that you're above the open mic. Like why, if I don't see you at the open mic and you're the kind of person that thinks, oh well, I'm above that because I've been doing it X amount of years. Well, okay, you might have been doing open mics for X amount of years, but that doesn't mean that anybody's booking you. All right, like you haven't gotten a following to make it make sense to actually book you, because bookers are going to have to look at, okay, are they funny, or are they looking at, okay, is this guy going to sell tickets? That's why these Kill Tony people are like doing so well, but they're not like particularly great usually. But because of Kill Tony itself, they know that it's a draw. So you got to at least be a draw or funny. I'd rather be a double threat. I want to be a draw and be funny. That's the goal for me. So I don't know why you think, especially if you haven't even done more than a 15-minute set, why do you think that you're above doing open mics? I mean, I, after 11 years, still host an open mic, and I do it so that I can work out my own new jokes, man. Like, I don't know why people, like, assume that. Um, but the last little part of this, I wanted to talk specifically to venue owners. That's the portion that I have for other comics that are, trying to break in. So now I want to talk to venue owners and what they should expect from a comedy show. Yeah, I said it earlier. No intermissions because that just screws up the timing, and again, it's got to be a crescendo, and then no distraction or as few distractions as you can make. It's typically a show shouldn't be more than 90 minutes. I mean, sometimes 2 hours is acceptable. If it's really a hot show, then let it go a little longer, but it shouldn't be, it's not a 3 to 6 hour ordeal. You shouldn't have servers screaming. But I will say this, I tell this to all the bars that I've worked. I'm not going to tell you have to have cocktail servers. It's your bar. But if I'm doing my job and the comedians are doing their job really well, that means that people are going to be in their seats watching. They're not going to want to get up to go get a drink. So if you want to capitalize on the money at a comedy show, you should probably get cocktail servers to go serve. And when you do that, make sure you explain to them, like, hey, don't yell at people and don't add a situation. I was doing a comedy show at this like nightclub in Scottsdale years ago, and I think it was Michael Longfellow actually. He's a current SNL cast member. They had one of those, like, it was like the kind of club you go to for bottle service, and they got like scantily clad ladies walking around. And somebody bought a bottle in the middle of the show, and she came out. They have like a whole crew of girls, and they came out with, there's like the firework bottle. Michael's in the middle of his set, and she just walks right in front of him, and it was like completely distracting. So, if you're running a comedy show, that don't do stuff like that. Just have them. When I was starting out, I was a server at a comedy club, and the way we did it was that you had to get a lot of the drinks out by just doing hand gestures because you couldn't talk through the show. So treat it like a movie. All right, people don't. That's why I always do doors at 7:30, show at 8 or whatever, because I want people to come in and get their drinks before the show starts rather than just show up right as the show starts and then have to have that be a distraction. So, but if you're trying to maximize money during a comedy show, get out there and cocktail or somebody. You don't have to, but that is how you're going to make the money. That's how comedy clubs operate. So I know when I talk to venue owners, I will tell them, like, look, I don't, whatever you do outside of the show is, whatever you do. But if you really want my help to run a comedy show, then you need to establish, hey, for tonight, we are going to operate as close as we can to what a comedy club operates as, or else this doesn't work. And that's why I don't do a lot of venues, like a lot of these venues. Like, there's a lot of places I could have reached out to over the years. I mean, Ground Zero was looking kind of cool, but then I'm like, I don't think that they're going to listen to these demands. And that's why it doesn't work out there, for comedy anyway. I know the person that they were hiring, and he told me the stories, and like I felt bad for him, but it's because they don't. You got to establish to these venues, hey, this is what has to happen for a comedy show to be a success at this venue. Shout out to Lunchbox. He's a great dude. I'm doing a few shows for him next week at the Elephant in the Room over in Gulfport. It's a pretty cool. It's like an antique gallery, but then they have like a separate showroom with a bar. It's really cool. I'm doing a few shows for him next week, opening for Stephen Lally. The dude used to write for Cat Williams. We had him at the Jute Joint last year. Very excited about the weekend of shows next week. Very excited about tonight's shows at the Fifth World Art Gallery with you, Nora. You've been the champion all night. I got 3 people watching right now, but here we are. Well, any questions? Because I have talked my ass off. I'm trying to get better at speaking more eloquently in a podcast format rather than make it a stand-up show. And I know that this was a boring episode, but the point of it was to actually spread information about things that I think are important to know, things that I don't typically get to talk about with comedians because, or venues, because, I'm usually busy running a show when you see me. I don't really go out very much outside of doing shows, but that's work, We also have I'm very excited to announce a show coming up December 6th. If you haven't already seen it on Facebook, I've been doing these comedy burlesque shows in New Orleans for the past 2 years. I love working with them. It's my friend Vivi Noir and Tommy Brennan. They're a married couple. He's the comedian. She's the burlesque performer. He hosts and he brings her up, and they have a really fun back and forth on stage, and then they always bring up a comedian as a feature. For this one, I've been doing it for a while. They do it in the French Quarter. If ever you're in New Orleans on an odd Thursday, they do it at this place called Clyde's Corner. It's on Bourbon and St. Peter. It is a great show. I highly recommend it. It's like a little small bar where you go upstairs. It's awesome. And so I decided, because of this, I was like, hey, let's bring them on down to the Jute Joint. So that's exactly what we're doing on December 6th. So get your tickets. They're on sale at jutejointos.com. I'm very excited about it. Um, Nora, you said you'll bring your tray. I don't know what that means. By the way, Nora, please subscribe since you're still here. You're now the last one. Hopefully, this gets more views. I really hope that this YouTube thing pans out. But everybody says that in the beginning it sucks, where it's just like, man, you're like speaking to nobody. But at least now I can say I'm doing this to get better at it. This is just the test run. But also, hopefully, the comics kind of get good information out of this. I was hoping to have more questions, but whatever. I still have enough to talk about when it comes to the comedy industry, something I know a lot. Cocktail tray. All right. Well, hey, look, you're running a different thing. I mean, they're not they're not legally buying it from you, so. Or are they? What are we doing? What are we? It's just us. What are we doing tonight, Nora? Are we doing BYOB? We just didn't want to advertise it, or you said you bought some beers. How are we doing this? You talked about getting a license or a permit. What are we doing? God. Thank God I'm not headlining tonight because I just talked for an hour, meaning I just headlined in my office. All right, well, it's been a good one. Please like and subscribe. Comment if you're watching this after, because it's going to be live now, but it will. Okay, BYOB or free beverages. We're highly encouraging tips. We're highly encouraging you to buy art and buy merch at the end of the show that we will auction. We're highly encouraging you to tip the mime. I don't know how that works with those guys. It's a whole new thing for me. So come out tonight. Hope to see you. Follow me on Facebook. Follow me on TikTok. Follow me on Instagram. That's where I'm actually really good at social media, is posting like short form content. So follow me on that stuff. Let's get the first step out of the way and get this page to 100 subscribers. Please help me out here, man. Talk to y'all next week.